There was a time when the maps of the world still spoke Africa's name, when the blue body between two continents was not the Atlantic Ocean, but the Ethiopian Ocean. Cartographers once wrote it proudly across their globes, Oceanus Æthiopicus. It meant, quite literally, the ocean of the black world. Back then, Ethiopia didn't just mean one country. It meant all the lands south of Egypt, the dark-skinned nations that the ancients knew as the cradle of people. The Greeks spoke of it with awe. Homer called the Ethiopians the blameless race, living at the edge of the earth where gods came to dine. And for centuries, that name rippled across every major map, from Coronelli's globes of 1690 to Delisle's atlases of 1720. You can still find it written there, curving in ink across the South Atlantic, linking West Africa to the Americas like a signature that refused to fade. On this channel, we've covered a lot of erasure by humans, the bleaching of faces, the rewriting of stories, the theft of civilizations. But rarely did we think them capable of erasing an entire ocean. Yet they did. The name of Africa's ocean slowly disappeared, one edition at a time. By the 19th century, Oceanus Æthiopicus was gone, replaced by a colder word, South Atlantic. The meaning, African, human, sacred, was scrubbed away in favor of geography without soul. Why? Because names carry power. As historian Basil Davidson once wrote, to control a name is to control the memory that name holds. And so they redrew the seas to fit a new hierarchy. Europe at the center, Africa below the fold, her waters renamed, her legacy unmoored. But the ocean remembers. Every wave that touches the coasts of Ghana, Angola, or Bahia still carries the echo of that older title. It was the same ocean that bore the Swahili merchants from Kilwa to Calicut, centuries before the Portuguese claimed discovery. The same ocean that whispered stories from Mali to the Caribbean long before Columbus learned to sail. Long before Atlantic, it was the Ethiopian Ocean, the highway of black civilization. From the Horn to Zanzibar, African sailors mastered monsoon winds and built vessels that stitched continents together. Arab writers like Al-Mas'ud in the 10th century described Zanj pilots who knew every star on the eastern horizon. These were the Swahili navigators, Africans trading gold, ivory, and knowledge across the Indian Ocean world. When Chinese chroniclers later wrote of mighty Kunlunbo ships crewed by dark-skinned mariners, they used a word, Kunlun, that in parts of Mali and Senegal still means ship or boat. Coincidence? Or the linguistic wake of an older connection carried east by the winds? Each plank, each syllable, tells us Africa's reach was not bounded by its shores. The Ethiopian Ocean was never just water. It was the bloodstream of a global network with Africa at its heart. And yet, in the age of empire, even the sea had to be conquered, not only with guns and ships, but with ink. The mapmakers of Europe renamed everything they touched. As historian J.B. Harley noted, cartography was the language of power. The map was never neutral. By the time colonialism was done, Africa's ocean no longer bore Africa's name. But erasure does not mean absence. The stories survive, on coral coasts, in oral histories, in the rhythm of words like Kunlun that still float between continents. And if we listen closely enough, we can still hear it. The low pulse beneath the waves, the voice of the forgotten Ethiopian Ocean calling us home. The deeper we look, the clearer the current becomes. From Lamu to Sofala, Africa's coasts thrummed with shipyards. Swahili craftsmen carved hulls from mangrove wood and stitched them with coconut fiber, their sails catching the monsoon's breath. Long before Vasco da Gama charted these waters, African merchants were already sailing them with purpose. The Arab geographer Ibn Battuta described visiting Kilwa in the 14th century and wrote with admiration that it was one of the most beautiful cities in the world. He met merchants from India and Arabia, yes, but also local captains who knew every current by memory and every constellation by name. The Portuguese would later boast of bringing navigation to Africa, but they arrived like students, interrupting a class already in progress. The Swahili had centuries of trade with Arabia, India, and even China. Porcelain, gold, and stories crossed decks where Kiswahili, Arabic, and Mandarin mingled in the sea wind. In Chinese chronicles, the Kunlunbo ships were described as giant ocean vessels built by dark-skinned sailors from the southern seas, men the Chinese called Kunlun. They came from the islands of the west, one Tang-era record says, their ships broad as fields, their sails like clouds. The same term, Kunlun, still means boat in parts of Senegal and Mali, a whisper across time that the word itself may have sailed from Africa to Asia. To imagine these mariners is to see the ocean not as a barrier, but as a bridge. They were the engineers of connection. Each voyage traced invisible lines of kinship between peoples who shared not bloodlines, but horizons. The Ethiopian Ocean was their classroom, their marketplace, their memory. And westward, always westward, another legend stirs. In the Empire of Mali, Mansa Abubakari II gazed beyond the sunset and wondered what lay past the edge of maps. The Arab historian Al-Umari recorded the story. The Mansa fitted 200 ships, each laden with food and men, and commanded them to follow the western current until they found the other side. Only one ship returned, its captain saying the sea seemed to pull them onward as if into a river that swallowed all. Abubakari listened, then answered, "I will go myself." He left the throne to his brother and sailed into legend with an astonishing 1,200 ships. We may never know where his fleet landed, but currents don't lie. The same west-flowing gyres that carry Saharan dust to the Amazon would have carried Malian sails toward the Americas. Historians like Ivan van Sertima have argued that traces of African contact survive in Olmec carvings and botanical exchanges long before Columbus. Whether you believe every detail or not, the idea itself is a testament to Africa's restlessness, the refusal to believe that any ocean was impassable. But when Europe rose to dominance, it rewrote those waters. Maps became instruments of empire. The seas that once bore African names were redrawn to serve European eyes. In that cartographic baptism, the Ethiopian Ocean died a quiet death. The name was erased from atlases, from classrooms, from language itself. The silence that followed was so complete that generations grew up believing Africa had never owned an ocean at all. And yet, the clues remain. The oldest globes in dusty museums still bear faint lettering where Oceanus Æthiopicus once curved across the blue. Say the name aloud, and it feels alive again, ancient, dignified, elemental. Names matter. They are the handles by which we lift our ancestors from oblivion. To reclaim the Ethiopian Ocean is to remember that Africa's story was always global, that the rhythm of the tides carried her genius to every shore. When we speak the old names aloud, something stirs. The Ethiopian Ocean was never just a phrase on parchment. It was the sound of identity carried by wind and tide. To erase that name was to claim that black people had no place upon the waters, that Africa began and ended at her coasts. But history disagrees. The truth moves like undertow beneath the surface. In the stories of fishermen who still navigate by the stars of their grandparents, in the language of sailors whose words for wind and wave echo across continents. Linguist Cheikh Anta Diop once said that language is a fossil of culture. If you trace a word far enough, you find a people. The word Kunlun is one of those fossils, found both in West Africa and in the shipyards of ancient Asia. It tells us that memory can travel farther than empire. Even the Swahili phrase, Bahari Yetu, our ocean, carries a quiet defiance. It refuses to let geography be owned by anyone else. Every dhow that leaves Mombasa, every fishing canoe rocking on Senegal's coast, is a reminder that Africans never needed permission to know the sea. And maybe that's why the name had to be erased. Because if the world remembered that the Atlantic once wore an African name, the whole map would have to shift again, back toward balance. Remembering the Ethiopian Ocean means remembering that the global age began not with Europe's sails, but with Africa's currents. It means the center of the world was never fixed in one place. It moved with the ships, the stars, and the songs of those who crossed between them. So tonight, as we close, imagine standing at the edge of that forgotten shore. The horizon is wide, the water endless, but if you listen closely, the sea is whispering the same word it whispered before maps were rewritten. Ethiopia. Not the modern border, but the ancient idea, humanity's first name for itself. The sea remembers. Beneath the ink of foreign hands, the water kept its tone, a heartbeat under blue and bone, repeating Africa alone. They drew their lines, renamed the deep, but names are only breath. The tide forgets the conqueror's pen. It never forgets its depth. From Kilwa's docks to Mali's dream, from Zanzibar to Xi'an's shore, the winds still carry syllables the cartographers ignored. Kunlun, Bahari, Oceanus, all rising in refrain. The sea recites what land denies, our story in its name. We've seen their erasures, page by page, their borders drawn like scars. But water laughs at boundaries. It dances with the stars. Call it back and it returns. As rivers seek the sea, the Ethiopian Ocean lives again, wherever we remember we. Thanks for watching this episode. Do remember to like, comment, subscribe and share, and look out for the next one on Africa's great civilizations.